Hey everybody, it's Tim. Welcome back to another episode of HR Famous. I'm with my good friends JLee and Madeline Laurano. Ladies, it's the end of the year. We're going to talk about next year, but I'm going to start with this. I'm going to totally throw you guys under the bus and give you a question that we didn't talk about on the pre-show, which, the whole pre-show should just be the pod. Anyways, different story. Maybe that's the premium upgrade version. People pay for the pre-show. That's
right.
That's what they
and
should
the
do.
post show.
Best either movie, TV series, or book that you take away from 2022 that you watched, listened to, consumed. I'll start with you, Madeline.
This is a great question. I feel like I get a lot of shit for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I really loved Euphoria. And sometimes people hear that and they're like, that's about teenage sex. That's inappropriate. Yeah. But that show was so well done. It was heavy, but it's just like, it's beautifully done. The story's amazing. The acting's amazing. And I loved that TV show. I watched it twice, so I just loved it.
Is that an HBO one?
It's HBO, yes. And it takes them so long to film it because they do it all in like short clips.
Yeah.
So it's going to be 2 years before the next season's out.
So I hadn't watched that one, but I think producer Cam had watched it, and then I asked him, and he's like, it's a teeny bopper one. Don't watch it.
Really?
Even though he liked it.
They think I'm a weirdo, like I'm some kind of weirdo for watching this show. But I don't know. I'm very curious to hear what Cam thinks about this. But
he really liked it. He said it was great. But then like he thinks all my kids think like I'm like some harder ass than I really am. Like I don't. So anyways, I'm sure I would have enjoyed it.
You're not a weirdo. It's not that you're a weirdo for watching it. I actually think it's like, oh, Madeline, you're dark because there's some dark things in it where like to get through it, it takes like some real stamina to be able to continue on, especially if you're a parent, because there's some dark things in there. But I also think there's some funny moments, but it's intense. So you're not a weirdo. Like,
that's what, like when you told people that you watch Black Mirror, like I had to be very careful who I tell people like, oh, you watch Black Mirror, because they look at you like you're a complete psychopath, like how could you make it through the first 3 episodes? You're like, oh, I'm on season whatever, and they're just looking at you like, oh my gosh, you are dark at a level I can't comprehend.
Right. There's like judgment that comes with it. I know. I think maybe if I had high school aged kids, maybe it would be harder for me to stomach Euphoria. But mine are still a little bit off from that age group. But it's so good. It's so well done.
Nice.
It's so well done. That's a good one. I was late to this, but in 2022, I watched and fell in love with Ted Lasso. And like, how can you not want to be a better person or a better leader in watching Ted Lasso? I fell in love with it. So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Isn't it? It's so hard to pull off kind of an upbeat, very feel good kind of TV show in today's world that people don't go, it was cheesy or, whatever, like because it has like serious moments and it deals with some serious topics at the same time. Like you just have this guy who's an internal optimist that's going through some really hard stuff in his life too.
Right.
And you're just like, I'm like, yeah, again, I was early in and like and consumed it and like loved it. And you're just like, this is such a great like show.
I loved it. I loved it so much. And I wish I can like, I know I'm married, but I loved Roy so much. And sometimes I like walk around my house now and I'll just grunt, oi, because I just like feel it like somewhere deep in me, like however he feels when he's going, oi, I feel that same thing. I feel it.
So was he your favorite character, Jessica?
Yes. Roy was my favorite. I loved
Roy fucking Kent.
Yes.
I mean, I also thought he was hot. Like, he was hairy and probably had some issues, but I thought Roy was hot. I love Roy.
Yeah, I love Roy too.
Roy is amazing. The one time when who was it? Not Jessica. The older, the owner, the female.
Hannah. Her name's real name's Hannah. Rebecca.
Rebecca was talking about like they were asking about some, and Roy and his girlfriend were together. I'm terrible with names and characters, anyways. And Rebecca was telling like yeah, I think this is the one. Like anyway, like it was fine, and he went off on her and was like, no, fine is not
Yeah.
enough. Like you deserve amazing. You deserve, and you're like, and you just go like that is the perfect response to that. But like, and like the girlfriend wouldn't say it. She's just like, oh, that's great. Like girls do to each other. And like, Madeline, if you want to talk about how girls are bad friends or good friends, we can do that as well versus men.
I know that was a podcast topic I brought up too. Yeah, I feel like that scene was really amazing too.
So
There's so many good
powerful.
Yeah.
ones. So many good things. The only thing I'm stressed out by though is I think I'm not sure if Jason Sudeikis in real life is a good person or not because of like some of the things I've heard about his like past relationships. So I would be really devastated if in real life like there isn't some goodness in him and that Ted Lasso doesn't come from somewhere that it's all made up. I'd be so heartbroken.
I
All I
saw
know is he's a serious sneakerhead, like serious sneakerhead,
totally.
and like him and I could hang. Like
Yeah.
I would hang with him. Like they have there's like a bunch of the videos where like these sneakerhead guys do like YouTube shows, and like he'll go in and drop $8,000 at like a place in LA. I mean, and it's all like dunk lows, and he knows every single one. Like he's into it, you know.
I did see him interviewed, and he said that he's not a good enough actor. He's like, I'm not a really good actor, so I can't completely make
Fake
this
it.
up. There's part of the character that is in him, and
Oh,
I think some of that Ted Lasso is him inherently.
Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I did. I'll say like I don't know if it's like I watch so many things I think that are great. Like the TV in the world today is amazing. So like I was a big Game of Thrones, so House of Dragons, watched that, loved it. Um, and then I always have like this depression after a series is done. Like I want more. Like I
Yeah.
think that's causing. And then I just got done watching Peaky Blinders, which again is one that's super.
Oh,
Um, there's a lot of violence in that, but the
mm.
character development is so great. And I talked to so many people that were like, I watched the first 3 episodes and like we just quit. We couldn't do it. And I'm just like, my wife was the same way. Like she was literally, I'm like, hey, I think it was actually Katie said like, hey, you got to watch this. So I'm like, okay, so I'm into it. I'm watching it, and she was totally like checked out. But then as it started, kept going. All of a sudden, she was like, now who is that again? And what's happening? Like, like the character development was so great in it. So, anyways, those were probably the two of the ones I watched that were good. But it seemed like there's been a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, there's been some
None
good
of us
shit.
talked about books. I mean, I had a book, but it's not that exciting. I need to read
Yeah,
more
Another
books.
book, Tomorrow
I
and
was,
Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Did you see that one at
Oh,
all? It's about two gamers that like went to college in probably the 90s and developed a game together, and sort of it just kind of follows them through 3 decades of the gaming business, and it's a love story, but it was good. It wasn't amazing, but it was good.
oh, is it a romance novel with like
No,
gamers like in their muscular bodies on the cover? No.
no, this was a gamer. I think he had like a disabled leg, so it was not
Oh.
like a sexy.
What is that guy with the long hair? That guy with the long hair, Fabio. Fabio's on the cover of
Fabio.
the book.
Yeah.
Fabio.
Mhm.
So yeah, like those trashy like romance novels.
Yeah.
I read, I guess one of the books I read that I liked was Talent: How to Identify Energizers, Creatives, and Winners Around the World. It was Tyler Cowen, who's a
Oh,
guy I love. I follow his blog, so I love that because he's an economist, and I love economists. Madeline and I were just in Boston, and Andrew Flowers at Appcast presented, and I'm just in love with that guy because
Yeah.
they just have such great information that is contextually really important to us in HR and TA. It has such an impact because they're almost like in the forefront of saying, hey, by the way, guess what's going to happen in a couple of years? They already know. And like, we don't even pay attention until it happens to us. And then we run around like fighting fires. And we're like, you should know this. Like the economists have known this for years. Anyways, I liked it because of that, because it's an economist view, but also some of the things were like, well, sure. Yeah. Like we're already in talent acquisition. Like we get this, but to them it's like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing, and you're like, okay, you're an economist, you would know, that kind of stuff in terms of, how to select talent best or whatever. There was nothing like super groundbreaking there, but there was a lot of economist stuff that I really liked.
The interesting thing about Tyler, because we were trying to hunt him down to come
Yeah.
speak at Marriott for something. I don't think he likes HR people, so I do want to like dig in with him at some point if I had the opportunity to, because he kind of knocks HR people and some things I've listened to where maybe it's like the old school HR people that he, has concerns or frustrations with or old practices. So
Yeah.
that's like an interesting dynamic to me where I'm like, I don't know what
Don't
you
we
think
as
about
well? Like, don't we have a problem with old HR, like,
well,
thought
yes, we
processes?
do. Mhm, mhm. Tyler just hasn't met us. That's the problem. He doesn't know that we are out there.
I know. I've actually, it's funny, actually, I've sent him a couple of emails and he's actually really responsive. And one of them
Oh,
was like, he had written something that I was like, dude, you're totally wrong on this. And he actually put it up as a blog post. He's like,
Oh,
"Hey,
really?
a writer sent this, and like I want to get in, like, because he has a really active commenting audience that will like kind of get into it. Half of which are like academics, and then the other half are kind of like amateur economists, like I am, and it was amazing to kind of like see that feedback. But he was like, holy crap, like I didn't think of it that way. And I can't even remember what it was, but it was something regarding like talent HR, something that he had talked about. And he had put in one lens on it and said, nope, this is how this is. And I'm like, dude, you're wrong. And I didn't even comment and say that. I just sent it to him privately because I was like, I'm like, I love your stuff. Like, I mean, I read your stuff. I don't want to like call you out, but I'm like, you're totally off base on this. And he like put it up and said, he's like, asked me, he's like, do you mind? I'm like, no, go ahead, do it. Like, I would love to get the feedback and see what they think. And most people were like, yeah, Tim's right. I
Oh, really? That's good.
know. Now I don't even remember what it was, but anyways, it didn't matter. Well, cool. Jessica, I'll start with you. We'll do the year in review 2022 from an HR, talent, learning, our whole world. What do you take away from 2022? What's one of the big things you take away?
I feel like 2022 has been a really long year. It's been a very long year with many different phases to it. And like the one thing I'm still stuck on and like my takeaway is like at the beginning, it felt like we had such a big like hullabaloo about the Great Resignation. And like it was so intense. There was so much fury and worry and concern over it. And then it kind of became quiet quitting. And it's just interesting to like reflect back on the whole year for us to go from Great Resignation to quiet quitting. And some of this is the media hype, of course, and trying to find things for us to click on and us all to talk about. But I just think that like us labeling things, putting, some drama around things. And yes, there's some data to support it, but we sure get worked up over things that, in the long term may not be as, aggressive, explosive, worrisome as maybe, we think it is in the moment. And so that's kind of one of the things I'm stuck on is like, oh, our obsession with these trends and these things that are happening and freaking out, and maybe it's not so bad in the long run, which is why you're not supposed to like look at stock prices every single day, guys. So I mean, that's one thing from 2022. I think the Great Resignation is over. I don't feel like we're talking about it anymore, but like, can you believe that was this year?
So what's
No.
your trend for next year? No, I'm just kidding.
I saw,
Go
I
ahead,
saw
Madeline.
something today about quiet firing, and I was like, no, absolutely
Stop.
not. I'm not listening
Stop.
to any of this.
I know. I tried to like coin something early in 2022 called the big regret. And so I'm thinking like the Great Resignation, I'm like, all these people are going to regret it. And then it actually like people like started coming out. Like people were like, oh, people are regretting. But the big regret never took off. Like I tried to like do my own marketing term and have it take off and it didn't work. I'm like that
I
sucks.
liked it. I liked the big regret.
I
Sounds like a
do
movie.
feel, I know it does. I do feel like the lack of like, I don't call it journalistic integrity. I think the way media is sold now, where every single day you have to have big headlines and breaking news, that journalists have been like kind of conditioned and taught not to really go deep on something, right? I mean, the Twitter files thing is a great example where, regardless of your politics, that Hunter Biden laptop was actually real. It was actually his. And yet we had companies and news media outlets and everything that refused to report on it. And you're just kind of like, if you think about like when we were young, like there would have been like some journalist would have been like a dog with a bone on that thing and would have not let it go in whatever media outlet they worked for. They would have continued, like New York Times or Washington Post or whoever, they would have continued to kind of like every update would have been out there and they would have been supporting that journalist who was actually going through and, making sure the sources were valid and everything. And they never would have let it go. And yet nowadays we just have stuff that's continually like Elon Musk is a complete giant asshole, worthless piece of crap. And then you're like, because he laid off 70% of a company that was losing $1 billion a quarter, like there's just such disconnect from reality and just like headline seeking. I noticed the other day I pulled and we all like laugh about the BI stuff or Business Insider for those who listen to the pod all the time. We just call it BI. But Business Insider now, and a lot of their stories, like we'd laugh like when they're like on Google's culture is tanking. And then they'll be like, we talked to 4 employees, past employees who have left Google. And now on the bottom of them, they'll say like, are you a disgruntled Google employee? Like email here. Like they're just like constantly searching for like, instead of posting the article, how about you actually go find those employees and actually validate whether this is that or not, instead of like constantly trying to get people who are pissed off to like send you an email that you can report on as a headline. Right. Is just terrible journalism. But yeah, I agree with you, Jess. I think like having like all these constant headlines and trends thrown in our face, we don't even know where to turn next. Which I think, to my point, which is long-winded, we need like somebody within the HR talent, like learning community that we like, who do we turn to trust that like the research and knowledge we're getting is actually good? Like we just don't, I mean, we all know like Roy over at SHRM. Shout out to Roy. He's an awesome journalist and I think really cares and does his work. There's just so few of those people in our industry that, you can just go to and trust, like, right. Aren't like, again, Madeline and I, we write all kinds of content, but we're being paid by, tens of thousands of companies. Not really, like maybe 4. We hope.
You've been busy.
We hope it was tens of thousands of companies.
Looking for the inside scoop on payroll? Whether you're a payroll pro or just curious about your paycheck, we've got 2 podcasts you cannot miss. It's About Payroll delivers the latest trends for payroll pros, and It's About Your Paycheck is here for employees, breaking down pay and rights in simple terms. 2 great shows, 2 great hosts, and endless insights to keep you informed and empowered. Subscribe now and elevate your payroll knowledge. Brought to you by Work Defined, where payroll meets people.
So you always have to like go, are we trying to be honest and truthful? Heck yeah, we are. But we're also being fed information from one side a lot of the times, right?
Yeah. And, this actually came up on a call that I had recently about freelancers. And if you look at what the trend is for 2030, which is far away, it's that 50% of an average organization's workforce will be comprised of freelancers. That is like the biggest story in HR right now that we're not talking about, right? Like we don't talk about that because we're not really demoing with a lot of the freelance management systems. We're not really as involved with that market, and it's a big topic, but I think it's to your point. It's not necessarily, something that we're talking about that we should be.
Yeah, Madeline, oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, like on that one, I guess I wonder, like, do we have a sense for, like, there's 2 drivers potentially, like, as soon as you said it, I'm like, well, there's one piece around, the cost of having a full-time employee versus freelancer. But then there's the other side of it around people's desires for how they want to work, where they want to work, what relationship they want to have with an employer. And so, like, is it both? Are there other factors that people are starting to talk about?
Yeah, I think it's definitely both. I think it's like individuals, especially coming out of the pandemic, where they just wanted a different type of work or to shift their own, kind of perspective around work. This is an option and you can make a lot of money and you can control your career and have flexibility. So I think that's definitely one side of it. And I think for companies, there's huge benefits in terms of, filling critical skill gaps, being able to think about, your team development in a very quick and efficient way. And then, there's even with remote work, there's like compliance benefits for freelancers now. It's like for companies that don't want to go through all of the work to manage and worry about a remote workforce now, freelancers have been doing this forever. They know this model works. They know how to work remotely. And it, from a compliance standpoint, it sometimes makes more sense.
Yeah. I mean, I've been pushing for so long for heads of TA, and like, man, we were just in Boston talking with a bunch of like, kind of HR TA leaders. And one of the things I still don't understand, and like, very few will actually kind of grasp onto this idea, which is, hey, it's not just about these kind of full-time, part-time FTEs in your organization. It's about the freelancers, the temps, the contractors, the consultants. It's about anybody doing the work that it takes to have your organization be successful. And you should own all of that talent. That talent is part of your talent pipeline. And yet you're focused on maybe like to one half of it, like in the future. And you're just going to say the other half, we don't care. We're just going to let our hiring managers go off half cocked and do anything they want to get the work done, in the organization, and not have any kind of oversight or knowledge. And I was on with a hiring manager just this morning because I'm doing a recruiting diagnostic. And I said, like, talk to me about your process for hiring a full-time. But we go through the whole thing and what happens if you don't get the talent, blah, blah, blah. And then I go, okay, how about a contractor? And he goes, oh, I just go and do anything I want. Like, like so literally, wild. I just go do anything I want. And I'm like, so who tells you how much you should be paying? They just tell me, and the contractor like company will tell me. And I was like, if it feels like it's right, then I just say, okay. I'm like, no, zero oversight. And
I mean,
like, what if you want to hire them? And like, if I want to hire them, and then I make a decision. Like, do I want to pay the cost to like pay the person out, or do I? He's like, but I just make the decision. No one he gets no feedback from anybody. And I'm like, it is such a
support,
giant waste. And then when you talk, if you talk to like the Oracles, the Workdays, the SAPs, any of the ATSs, and say, hey, like, what about all of the talent, the entire talent pipeline, all the people in the barn?
Talent. Yes.
Total talent. They'll go, Tim's, no one's asked for it. No heads of TA, no CHROs asked for it.
Yeah, they don't ask for it.
So this was like a few years ago when I still sat in TA before, of course, Kristen was over here running the show. Like, that was the conversation we're trying to have, is total talent, and as a recruiter or as an HR person. And I think this is like big mindset shift and like skill set shift for recruiters around. It's not just about here's my rec load. It's here's the person I own a relationship with. How do we look at all the levers for how we're going to fill some kind of gap that exists? And like, it's going to take some creativity, some consultative skills. The technology needs to support it. But yeah, right now, all these things are just siloed and distributed. And like, poor hiring managers are like, oh, I don't really know where to turn. I'm on my own on some of these things. And it's wild. So big pivot to be made.
It is one of the advantages of skills-based hiring. Like, we had that conversation too, Madeline, with the Josh Bersin Academy think tank. And to me, that's where this really plays in, because like, as you start to look at the skills you have, the skills you need, well, then you have to like actually measure all of the skills of the work that's being done. It's not just those full-time employees, part-time employees. It's about the consultants, the contractors, the temps, the freelancers, the giggers, whatever you want to call them. They're all doing work for your organization. And those skills, like if you thought, like a marketing group that was using all freelancers to do all of their design work. And then you thought, oh, hey, guess what? We're going to increase our marketing by 100% in the next 5 years. We're going to do all this other work. And then you totally discounted the fact that 100% of your design work was being done by freelancers. Like, you are totally missing out on some of the huge advantages that you should be focusing on and taking advantage of,
Yeah. And diversity, equity, and inclusion too. It's like, if this is the number one priority for organizations and you're going to invest money in thinking about your culture and invest in solutions, then you're only looking at a portion of your workforce. How are you going to see any changes?
Yeah. That's another 2022 kind of takeaway, right? Like, I had a feeling like there was less emphasis in DE&I in 2022 than we had really felt the last 5 years.
Yeah,
Jessica, like, what about you? Like, what was that? I mean, you're from an organization standpoint, I'm sure it was there. I just felt like it was less of a talked about topic.
Oh, you think so? I don't
And maybe we've just been talking about it for so much for so long. It had the ear, and it's just a natural kind of thing for it to like kind of go
I
the
think
other way.
certainly with technology, as it relates to technology, maybe that's like the shift, Tim. It's like for anything related to HR tech, that DE&I was the laser focus for 2020. And then this year it just wasn't. Like, and you could see the vendors stop their marketing around it. You could see a lot of shifts. So maybe it's not the strategy or the culture piece, maybe it's the tech.
I mean, part of it could also be like if we're being really cynical about it, like 2020, there were things happening in the
Social
world,
justice,
culturally,
yeah.
socially, right, where it kind of forced the conversation in a really explicit way. And so that could be part of it. But I guess at least for us, like, and one of the things I'm seeing in other organizations too is like how to not make it be like the focal point so that it is an add-on standalone thing, and instead like how do you embed all things DEI and B in like an integrated way so that it is in the DNA, it is a part of everything. I mean, some people may argue when it's a part of everything, is it anything? So I think that there's, you know, pros and cons to that mindset, but I think the focus is still there, and people may be like heads down trying to meet some of the goals that they all were committing to left and right. You know, let's say in 2020 or even before that. But yeah, I mean, some of this could go back to media as well, though, of was it the thing that all the spotlight was on from a media perspective? So I don't know, those things may be intertwined.
All right, let's talk about what anything like. So we kind of had some like reflection of 2022 as we look ahead to 2023. Madeline, I'll start with you. Like, what do you any major kind of points of emphasis, change, focus that you see coming out of organizations, technology, whatever?
Yeah, this is a good question. I don't know if I see anything new, but I definitely think the skills thing has surprised me, Tim. Like the past couple roundtables that we've done together, this is the whole like we really have to pull people away from this topic because it's all they want to talk about. And if I think back to 2021, even the beginning of 2021, it was hard to kind of start these conversations. People didn't really want to talk about skills. Like nobody really understood skills. I don't know if we've moved past that, but it's like the topic that everyone's obsessed with. And I think as I look to 2023 and like the research that we're going to do, I definitely want to make a big splash with research on the skills front and look at both like the strategy work. Like there's this feeling with organizations of we need a lot of work to do on the strategy piece, and they don't know what that means necessarily. It's like, do they build a skills ontology? Do they like build a framework? And then that feels like years. And then they'll look at technology. So I don't think it has to be that way. I think that's the wrong approach. And I feel like that's where companies get stuck. So that's what I really want to look at in our research. But it is, to me, like the number one topic. And I'm not just saying that because I love Josh Bersin and I love what he writes about, but I do. But I really believe this is the topic. And I think it can make an impact, but some companies are so confused about what it is.
So Jessica, it's right in the heart of what you do every single day at Marriott. So like where are you guys with skills? Like what, if you prioritize, like, is that is a huge part of the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that interesting two things about skills for me. One is part of the reason why I think it's hard for organizations and they feel like either intimidated or they're not sure like where to start in terms of grappling with it is that like it touches so many different parts of like the talent life cycle from TA to learning to performance management. And I think if organizations don't have a total talent view or let's say a chief talent officer and someone who owns all those things, like there's the herding of the rats, cats, and elephants to figure out who owns it, who's on first, and all of that. That makes it hard on a practical level. That might be just a big company thing, but I know that that's real. I think the other thing is, I think people are overcomplicating where to start with skills. And I think to a certain degree, I'm going to blame vendors to a certain degree on trying to make it really more complex and talking about a taxonomy or an ontology or whatever terminology you want to use around like, well, we have our own dictionary, blah, blah, blah. And I think in reality, most organizations have like building blocks for skills and they're not always taking a step back to say, I've got a competency framework, I've got skills tagging against my learning content, I've got all these things that can help you get moving in the right direction. And so I feel like HR people probably can give themselves a little bit more credit around what building blocks do you have, or vendors and consultants could do a better job of saying, actually, you've got these things. Let's figure out how to like marry it all together. I feel like we're making it more intimidating than it needs to be, but I 100% agree with Madeline that skills is like all the rage and that everyone is talking about it. And we are too. And I've got some work against it for next year, but I just don't think it has to be as complicated as we're making it. It's just like a different way to organize either competencies, behaviors, or whatever you want to call it. And I think the building blocks are there.
I think you're right. And I agree that the vendors play a role in overcomplicating it. And it actually, the biggest disservice that does is for the vendor, because what happens is they overcomplicate it. The company gets stuck in feeling overwhelmed by it, and then they don't move forward with the vendor. So 100%, I think that
was spot on. To me, in the 2 roundtables we had in the last like 2 or 3 weeks, Madeline, that was the biggest takeaway I had, is that the enterprise level HRTA user of skills or buyer of skills of all this stuff is overwhelmed by it. And really doesn't know where to start. And then, and as you make it as a vendor, if you make it more complicated, they just check out and decide, well, I can't start there. So somehow we have to simplify this and make it super easy. And I think it's there. Like Jessica, I think we're trying to overcomplicate it because there's so much money in it. So if you're going to sell something for a lot of money, it better be complicated, because otherwise, why would we pay all this money? And you're like, well, just because the nature of actually putting all this together, you need big tech. I mean, you're going to need some really great tech behind it. So Jessica, for you, 2023, what's a focus?
I'm going to go like micro, but it's like, I think there's broader application. Like one of the things I've been paying a lot of attention to, and you both have seen this in some of our chat. I think that like in the space of learning, one of the things I'm really paying attention to is all of the AI that's out there that is going to change the way we do content creation. And I think this has implications in the marketing space and other, business functions, but like it is going to become cheaper, easier, quicker to create creative assets, which we would use in learning content, for example, where like I don't have to do a photo shoot. I don't have to pay someone to go film something. Like we can use AI to create images that reflect something that you wouldn't even be able to come up with like on set doing a photo shoot, or if I was at a hotel. I mean, we've played around right between the 3 of us around, show me a picture of a person doing this, blah, blah, blah. And like these apps are, spitting it back out to you, and it's still early, but I think it's going to keep evolving. And that's one of the things I'm excited about is how do we, create content more quickly, easily, and smartly using AI. So that's the one thing I'm very curious to see in 2023.
Yeah, I tend like at least 3 or 4 times a week, I will do OpenAI or log into OpenAI, my OpenAI account, and mess around with ChatGPT or GPT. And
is that how you're writing your blog posts right now?
I am not, but I could. I mean, literally, the testing I'm doing, the questions I'm asking, and what it comes back with. What I need to do is if I could upload every single blog post I've ever written, everything I've ever written. So now I can say, hey, write it in the tone of Tim Sackett. And it's not, I mean, but sometime by next year, it'll have that ability. And it's like insane. It's like literally, I mean, I'd love to be able to tell you like it's just totally off base and the stuff that it writes is not good. It is actually pretty damn good. And there's a bunch of high schools and colleges right now. So there was an article just the other day I read about, so there's a teacher in New York who had a teenage son, and they started playing around with this, GPT, and said, okay, hey, write me a 1,000-word essay on this book. And here's the question, here's the focus. And they did it. And now these teachers have software where they can upload something to see if it was plagiarized. And it came back as 2% plagiarized, which is nothing for what these kids write.
Crazy.
Like their cutoffs are like 30, 35% plagiarism. It was 2%. And so the school system instantly took off access to Open API and every one of their school computers. And you're like, So like some kid can't go home on his own laptop and say, write
Exactly.
this thing.
Right.
How about instead of shutting it down, how about we figure out how do we work around this? And what it's going to come back to is a lot of old school skills. Like, hey, you have an hour and I need 500 words on this topic, right?
Right.
Here,
And
here,
it,
here, here's the reading you should have done.
Write
Here's the
them or
question right
remind.
now. Write it, you know?
Yeah,
yeah.
it's true.
Even it goes back to like the skilling conversation though, because maybe like the future of part of this education is for students to learn editing skills versus the writing skills. Like if AI is taking on a lot of that, maybe it's kind of what, you know, what does it look like to edit and contribute to
Yeah.
a piece of content that was created, you know, through
Yeah.
AI.
I think when we see it in like the HR tech space and also like in the TA tech spaces, we've seen some early startups starting to play with this where it's like on the skill side is going, somebody says, hey, I'm an expert in JavaScript. Oh, okay, cool. AI could actually come in and say, and start asking some questions, right? And then actually say, hey, you know what? Actually, you're intermediate based on this subgroup of individuals, blah, blah, blah. And so it's this validation of skills versus the self, like right now, pretty much everything is just self-identified, right? Like,
right.
Tim's an expert in TA. Like, well, who determined that? Tim did, you know, it's like, come on, that's not real. And I think that's one of the things holding the skills back long-term is like, we have to figure out the validation side, whether it's peer validation, a combination of 360 or whatever that is. And I know there's a lot of that stuff out there as well, which I actually like. But again, we know some of that can be gamed. So it's like, how does AI play a role in that? It's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
All right. That's what we got. That's the episode. First episode of 2023. Madeline, Jessica, thank you so much. And we will continue to do these as long as, you know, the world allows it and wants to hear it. So that's it. HR Famous, another episode in the books. We are out.